The shonen genre is probably one of my favorites to break down in the anime medium. This is because shonen anime walk this very unique balance of being anime and being almost mainstream. It's common knowledge that most of the popular Western anime almost always seem to be a shonen show. So today, I want to take the time to talk about perhaps the most popular shonen anime currently, My Hero Academia, and also talk about one of the most important aspects to its success, how they pace each episode. But before we begin, I'd like to thank this video's sponsor, the Amino app. It's an awesome community-based app where you can connect with people with similar interests, and they have a ridiculous amount of communities you can join. I am personally a part of the Anime Amino, the Stardew Valley Amino, and of course, the My Hero Academia Amino. Also, I decided to make my own Amino because, why not? So feel free to come to the Manime Matt Amino and help me make decisions on what videos I want to do in the future. Also, feel free to follow me as well. Links for all that stuff down in the description. So, most shonen anime are known for their awesome action scenes and ludicrously horrible pacing. Shows like Dragon Ball Z were made infamous for their 18-episode-long fight with Frieza. Plus, like a solid 60% of Naruto Shippuden is filler, maybe even more, but I've always referred to My Hero Academia as the modern shonen, acknowledging these flaws of the older shonen anime and deciding to try something a bit new. If the pacing of Dragon Ball Z is a little girl on a tricycle, My Hero Academia is a North American X-15 fighter jet. But going fast isn't the solve-all problem/solution to having a show with good pacing. Watch Divine Gate as evidence of this. So let's take some time to break down why each episode of My Hero Academia feels both satisfying and addictive. So I just realized that I've made it this far in the video without properly explaining what pacing is. Pacing, in this form of the word, is to move or develop something at a particular rate or speed. In other words, the speed at which you develop your narrative and/or characters. Thus, there is a clear difference between fast pacing and good pacing. Now, slow pacing isn't particularly bad. A lot of shows actually use a slow pace to their advantage. Steins Gate is a great example of this. Its original slow pacing lulls you into a false sense of security before exploding in your face. So, cool story, Manime, but what does any of this have to do with My Hero Academia? Well, my point is fast-paced episodes are only a small fraction of what can make an anime episode well-paced. What's more important is that the episode is independently satisfying, bringing me to my next subject I want to talk about, the difference between episodic series and serial series. Episodic series are a special breed of shows. These shows have episodes that are independent of each other and rarely have any overlap from previous encounters. One of the best episodic anime out there is Mushishi. There are some episodes with a little overlap, but the show mostly refrains from keeping any attachment from previous episodes interfering with the current one. It's a tried and true method. Each episode moves at its own pace with the goal of completing its own independent story. Serial shows are different. These are shows we are more familiar with. These shows tell larger connected narratives over multiple episodes, generally referred to as arcs. The show generally has one large goal in mind, such as becoming the Pirate King, Hokage, or the next #1 hero. Both of these formats have different approaches to keeping their audiences engaged. Serial shows use cliffhangers, leaving you in suspense at the end of each episode wanting to know what happens next. Whereas episodic anime leaves you feeling satisfied. They tell you an independent narrative that is a closed loop, hoping that you'll be happy enough to start the next one. Both of these formats have their clear advantages and disadvantages. My Hero Academia is a serial show. But what's impressive is that it takes some aspects of episodic anime and puts them to use, trying its hardest to balance advantages of both episodic and serial shows. And personally, I think it's extremely successful, hence the purpose of this video. My Hero Academia is an extremely fast-paced show, but it has its purpose. The show uses the speedy pacing to always get to a solid stopping point in the series before ending the episode. Generally speaking, most serial shows try to stop right before this point and leave it as a cliffhanger to ensure your return next week, even when completely unnecessary. Looking at you, Attack on Titan. But My Hero Academia chose a different path, instead opting to end the episode after these large emotional beats, with the cliffhanger being simply the mystery of what will occur next episode, leaving their audiences satisfied for the time being, but still keeping them heavily addicted. So let's break down an episode, and as a good example, let's do the most current episode as of the creation of this video. By the way, I should mention that this will be Season 3, Episode 4, so spoilers ahead, obviously. The first third of the episode is dedicated to setting up the larger act that is beginning, which is the escape/survive the attack from the villains arc. This is why I'm not allowed to name things anymore. They set up multiple scenes where fights are about to begin between heroes and villains, finally arriving to Midoriya versus Muscles. This fight is incredible for reasons I've talked about in the past video, link in the description, but what's important is all the phases that this fight goes through. It starts with Midoriya barely keeping up, to Midoriya going all out, to Muscles going all out, to Midoriya having to surpass his current limits and defeating Muscles. All in the same episode. It's powerful, incredible, and most of all, satisfying. But even though we are satisfied with this episode, it leaves us wanting more. The show intentionally opted to leave at the end of this insanely emotional beat because it has already set up the bait for the next episode, leaving multiple characters before their fights even began. I think most shonen would have intercut all these fights together, letting each one take up a little extra time by having small recaps and so on. But with this setup, we get to truly experience the fight with Midoriya with no forced cliffhanger. I think My Hero Academia is probably the best paced shonen anime out there. By acknowledging the weaknesses of its predecessors, HeroAca was able to devise a plan to successfully avoid the same pitfalls. Pacing is incredibly important. A show with bad pacing can be unbearable. But My Hero Academia clearly set a new standard by mixing elements of episodic shows into the serial style of storytelling. And that is how HeroAca paces an episode. Thank you guys so much for watching. But Manime, you did a sponsored video? I know. I'm famous now. No, but really, the guys at Amino were super nice, and they were kind enough to walk me through the entire process. You know, because it was my first time.
Why did I write that?
A huge shout out to my patrons as usual. You guys are my heroes. Speaking of which, if you're interested in seeing how I edit, chatting with me, or just supporting the channel, I run a $1 a month Patreon to make that as easy as possible. Make sure you guys share, like, comment, and subscribe. This is Manime Matt. Make sure you guys say, man, go watch that goddamn anime.